In 2014, a man named Ronald Reed passed away at the age of 92. To the outside world, Ronald was completely unremarkable. He worked for 25 years as a gas station mechanic and 17 years as a janitor. He lived in a quiet town, drove a second-hand Toyota, and patched his worn-out coat with safety pins, so when the news broke after his death, it stunned the entire country. Ronald Reed left behind an estate worth over $8 million. He donated $6 million to his local library and hospital, leaving the rest to his stepchildren. In that exact same year, another man named Richard Fusconi was filing for personal bankruptcy. Richard was everything Ronald was not. He was a Harvard-educated executive, a former vice chairman of Merrill Lynch, and one of the most successful figures on Wall Street. He owned an 18,000-square-foot mansion with 2 swimming pools, 7 elevators, and a monthly mortgage payment of $66,000. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, his entire world collapsed under high-interest debt and illiquid assets. Think about how insane this is. In what other industry on earth does a man with no college degree, no financial training, and a minimum wage job beat a Harvard-educated Wall Street executive by millions of dollars? You would never see a janitor perform heart surgery better than a Harvard doctor. You'd never see a janitor design a skyscraper better than a master architect. Yet in personal finance, it happens all the time. Why? Because building wealth is not about what you know. It's about how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people. Today, we are uncovering the 5 psychological brain glitches that trick intelligent people into making dumb money decisions, and the exact system you can use to fix your brain. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever promised yourself, once I make a little more money, everything will be easier? Then you got a raise or a better job or a side hustle payout, and within 3 months your bank account felt just as tight as before. You aren't alone. According to a July 2026 CNBC report, 41% of Americans earning over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Read that again. Nearly half of people making 6 figures have almost nothing left at the end of the month. Why? Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. When your income goes up, your brain experiences a short-term burst of dopamine, but within 30 to 90 days, your baseline recalibrates. What used to feel like a luxury, eating out 3 times a week, a nicer car, a bigger apartment, suddenly feels like a basic necessity. This triggers a psychological trap known as the Diderot effect, named after French philosopher Denis Diderot. It describes how buying one luxury item creates an internal compulsion to upgrade everything around it. You buy a nice watch and suddenly your old shoes look shabby. You buy new shoes and now your couch looks outdated. Before you know it, your expenses scale in perfect lockstep with your income. You aren't building wealth. You're just running faster on a treadmill that goes nowhere. Your brain was evolved for the African savanna 10,000 years ago. Back then, if you found food, you ate it immediately. Storing resources for 30 years didn't exist. Because of this, human brains suffer from present bias, also known in behavioral economics as hyperbolic discounting. When neuroscientists put people in MRI brain scanners and ask them to think about themselves 20 years in the future, the brain lights up in the exact same region as when thinking about a total stranger. Let that sink in. To your subconscious mind, your 65-year-old self is literally a stranger. When you decide to buy a $1,000 phone instead of investing $1,000, your brain doesn't feel like it's stealing from you. It feels like it's taking money from some random person in the future to give a gift to you right now. This explains why 71% of Americans fails basic compound interest questions on national financial capability surveys. We understand math logically, but our ancient brain rejects delayed gratification. In the 1970s, Nobel Prize-winning psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky discovered something fascinating about human nature called prospect theory. They proved mathematically that the pain of losing $1,000 is psychologically 2.25 times stronger than the joy of winning $1,000. Losing hurts twice as much as winning feels good. This cognitive flaw destroys people in 2 opposite ways. First, it makes people terrified of investing. Even when they know the S&P 500 has historically grown at approximately 10% annually over long periods. The fear of a temporary 10% market dip causes them to leave their cash rotting in a 0.38% traditional savings account. They choose the guaranteed slow loss of inflation over the temporary fluctuation of wealth building. Second, when people do invest and suffer a loss aversion causes them to hold on to failing investments or panic sell at the exact bottom, selling low out of pure psychological terror. We don't measure our wealth by what we actually have. We measure it by comparing ourselves to the people around us. For most of human history, you compared yourself to your 20 neighbors in a small village. Today, Gen Z and millennials spend over 4 hours a day on social media, exposing their brains to a curated stream of the top 1% of luxury lifestyles worldwide. Studies show 56% of Gen Z consumers report that social media directly drives their impulsive spending. Here is the secret truth about wealth that most people never learn. Rich is what you see. Wealth is what you don't see. Being rich means having a high current income and spending it on visible things and propagate luxury cars, designer clothes, expensive dinners. Being wealthy is the unspent income. It's the cash in your high-yield savings account. It's the index funds quietly compounding. It's the freedom to wake up and do whatever you want. When you see someone driving a $90,000 sports car, the only factual piece of information you have about their finances is that they have $90,000 less than they did before they bought the car, or $90,000 more in high-interest debt. In 2026, the TIAA Institute revealed that financial literacy scores dropped to an all-time low of 47%. Most people assume the solution is simply reading more books or watching more finance videos. Conscious willpower is a finite resource. If your financial plan requires you to sit down every Friday night, balance a spreadsheet, resist buying things, and manually transfer money into investments, you will eventually fail. On a stressful day, when you're tired, hungry, or emotional, your logical brain shuts down and your primitive brain takes over. This is why smart people make dumb decisions. They rely on willpower instead of systems. So how did a janitor like Ronald Reed accumulate $8 million? He didn't try to outsmart the market. He didn't rely on willpower. He set up simple, automatic habits. He bought blue-chip dividend stocks, held them for decades, and let compound interest do 99% of the work. Here is the exact 3-step psychological system to trick your brain into building wealth. 1. Pay yourself first. The invisible money rule. Do not save what is left over after spending. Spend what is left over after saving. Set up an automatic recurring transfer on the day your paycheck lands. 20% of your income should automatically move directly to your high-yield savings account or index fund before you ever see it in your checking account. If you never see the money, your brain cannot spend it. 2. Leverage the Vanguard 94% rule. Vanguard's landmark 2025 study found that when companies automatically enrolled employees into retirement accounts, participation skyrocketed from 64% to 94%. Remove yourself from the decision loop. Automate your monthly index fund contributions. Investing just $100 a month in the S&P 500 yields approximately $228,000 over 30 years. 3. Establish a 72-hour impulse buffer. Whenever you feel the urge to make a non-essential purchase over $100, enforce a mandatory 72-hour waiting period. This gives your emotional brain time to cool down and allows your logical prefrontal cortex to evaluate if you truly value the item or are just chasing a temporary dopamine spike. Financial success is not an intelligence test. It is a control test. You don't need a Harvard finance degree to be wealthy. You just need to recognize the cognitive traps built into your brain and design a system that makes wealth building automatic. If you haven't watched our full 7-stage roadmap in video 4, go watch that next. It gives you the exact tactical blueprint to pair with today's mindset. Subscribe to Mr. Money for weekly videos that make money simple. I'll see you in the next one.